Thank you very much. I think the professors have done a great job in terms of setting the agenda. But first of all, let me just say that I was just co-opted in the very last minute, so my thoughts might not be coherent. But I must say that I would say that the question says what? Can Africa trade us out of poverty? Can we trade ourselves out of poverty? And I say, yes, we can. Yes, we can trade ourselves out of poverty. And why do I say that? Because I know this continent is very rich. Contrary to what they tell you, you are very rich. And we should say that. Why do I say that you are rich? I say that we are rich because take the IMF statistics, not anybody's statistics. Look at the reserves that you have, the global reserves that you have. Contrary to what you might think, you have more reserves, totally aggregated, cumulative, than India, than Brazil. You have more reserves than that. It's true that the reserves probably is in the hands of the oil producers, the Algerians, the Libyans, and all that, and South Africa, Egypt. But think of it. Think of it. If we want to do it, you can keep your 54 countries if you want, that's fine. But you can set up a system whereby you yourself can set up a development bank which would help you to trade yourself out of poverty. So yes, you can trade. You are not poor. Africa is not poor. That's what I'll say. Now, that is why I think that if we want to trade ourselves out of poverty, then we should take integration seriously. Regional integration seriously. I am not saying do regional integration for sentimental reasons, just because I want to be able to live in Botswana or Malawi. No, it's not for sentimental reasons, but it's for more as a strategy towards our development. It's a strategy for our development. If you tear down the barriers and make it possible for trade goods to move freely, you can trade yourself out of poverty. We can trade ourselves. So Africa, we are not rich and we can make it. I look at trade, the reason why we can trade ourselves out of poverty. Let me look at the international scene. On the international scene, we have the Doha round, which is stalled. It was started as a development thing. It's not going well. But I say, fine, let our friends continue to negotiate with the WTO. But then tell our friends, if you really want to help us, those development partners, if you really want to help Africa, then remove those subsidies on farms for farmers in Europe. Remove those subsidies. We don't want you to give us aid. We want to compete fairly with you, and so make trade fair. Remove those subsidies, and we will be there, and we will be competitive. Then you come to the economic partnership agreements between us and the EU. I say to EU, please stop dividing us. Don't give one agreement to SADC. Don't give another agreement to ECOWAS. Don't give it to different agreements. Just put one agreement on table and we can talk about it, and that would help us in terms of the economic partnership. Just give Africa one and use the African Union as the instrument to negotiate that. But, you know, international, let us continue to do our things. Our ministers are good at it. But where I think we would like to focus on is the intra-African trade. We are 1 billion people. We just counted, they said the world is 7 billion, and we are 1. Why is China doing well? It is exploiting its numbers. It is exploiting its numbers. And this is one reason why we should also exploit our numbers in size. 1 billion people. Think of trading amongst yourselves. Think of what it means. Why is it a coffee, which we all love to drink in Ethiopia? Why is that when I get to West Africa, I don't find it? But I see it in a shop, Starbucks in Manhattan. Why is that? Why can't you find Ghana's cocoa or macadamia nuts from Malawi? Why can't we find it around Africa? But we find them when we cross the ocean, we find them. And this, to me, suggests that we have to look at diversification of our goods. We have to add value to our goods. We should stop being the primary producers, but we should add value. Yes, Africa is rich. Africa can trade itself out of poverty. Let me ask you this. Why is it that most of you came here? All of you came to Ethiopia. You are carrying US dollars or euro or pounds. Why? Because our payment system is such that you cannot convert your currencies. 54 currencies, or maybe if you take 8 countries that uses the CFA, in West Africa, and 6 that uses it in Central Africa, minus 2, maybe 40 currencies. Our currencies are not convertible. Let's face it. Our currencies are not convertible. And that is why you carry the US dollar or the euro when you walk around, when you travel. When you move from Ethiopia to our good friends in Kenya, the birr is not accepted there. The shilling is not accepted here. Why is that? Why have we not thought through this? If we want trade to happen. If we want trade to happen. And therefore, that leads me to the question of liberalization of our banking system. We have to liberalize services. If you look at our banks, in Ghana, for instance, the Nigerians have come in with their banks. I tell you, we've benefited from that. Ghanaians have benefited from having the Nigerian banks there. You see ECOWAS in EcoBank, in Nairobi, EcoBank penetrating Tanzania. I'm sure that they've done well. So let's look at liberalization and not fear. It's something of the past. The same thing with telecommunication. Let us not fear. Let us liberalize these things for ourselves. For ourselves.